Welcome back to Cross Rifle Outdoors. Rifle hunting season is right around the corner for the area that I live in, and been thinking a lot while I was throwing together some elk hunting loads about long range hunting. How far is too far? And there's a lot that goes into that. We're talking the game animal, your rifle, your bullet, the shooter, the rifle itself. There's a lot of factors that comes into long range hunting. One of the things to really keep in mind is you need to know your limitations. And I'm not talking about punching in all the information on a fancy ballistic calculator. It feeds you the corrections, and in 3 shots you're on a 20-inch piece of steel at 800 yards to 1,000. Well, it's not really relevant how much steel you can ring in a day from your most comfortable shooting positions off the bench. That doesn't give you the real world exercise. You need to be practicing in the environment that you're going to find yourself hunting. If you're hunting in the mountains, you need to be up in the mountains practicing your long shots. If you're hunting on desert flats, then you need to be on the flats, but you need to put yourself in the shooting positions that you're going to run into in real world applications. A lot of people will say, well, I can ring the steel all day long from my lead sled. Well, your lead sled, I guarantee you're not going to pack around into the mountains. The last thing you want to do is make a bad shot. You really don't want to just wound the animal, have it run off and die a horrible, painful death later because you thought you could do it when you really couldn't. You got too cocky and you were trying to impress your friends or your girlfriend with how far you could harvest your game animal. We have an obligation to the animal that we're hunting for a quick, clean, and ethical kill. We don't want to go for a headshot and blow its jaw off and then let it just run off and starve to death. You don't want to gut shoot it, get over there, and not be able to find a blood trail and lose the animal. That's highly unethical and flat out irresponsible, in my opinion. A lot of people don't go off what their cold bore shot is. And if you don't know what a cold bore shot is, you really shouldn't be considering long range hunting. Your point of aim and point of impact will shift as your barrel warms up. Realistically, you're only going to get your 1, maybe 2 shots at an extended range on your animal. If you don't know where your cold bore shot is and you type everything into the calculator, you run the risk of just missing or wounding the animal. There's a lot of things that really get overlooked when we start talking about the long range hunting. There's a lot of fantasizing in your mind that, yes, I can do it. I'm a sniper wannabe. I can shoot an animal at this range. And realistically, you're not set up to do it. One of the things that I like to do when I'm really learning my rifle and figuring out the ranges that I'm comfortable to say I can ethically harvest an animal at this range is I take it varmint hunting. In the area I live, we have rock chucks. Other people in the U.S. would know them as a yellow belly marmot. If I cannot hit the rock chuck cold bore at that range every time I touch the trigger, then I'm not ready to harvest a game animal at that range. And we're not driving, shooting off benches, laying prone in a field somewhere. We're in lava beds, dirt mounds. You put yourself in some really interesting shooting positions to get on target for varmints. Now, the areas that we like to go, I mean, you pick the limit. You can shoot out to 1,000. You could even go 1,200 on some of the areas, but you want to focus on what you're really going to be hunting at if you're learning your hunting rifle for a long range hunt. Now, 2 great gentlemen have really put things into perspective for us. One is P.O. Ackley and Elmer Keith. If you don't know who those individuals are, you should really look them up. They did a lot of testing for the government shooting pigs and really have set a lot of the standards for what a lot of people live by when it comes to hunting in general. Now, Ackley and Keith had their falling out, and they kind of butted heads quite a bit and contradicted what the other one would say is hunting gospel. P.O. Ackley put out that 1,000 foot-pounds of energy and a good bonded bullet at any range will go through an elk at any direction. So if you're shooting, let's say my 7mm, I have 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at 800 yards. I run an AccuBond long range, which is a very nice, well-known bullet. I could shoot an elk and go through it any direction at that range. Am I going to shoot that far? No, because I know my limitations and I'm not willing to wound an animal and waste it. But one of the things that Keith Elmer said is you need way more gun for what you're hunting. So P.O. Ackley was a little more, I'd say, realistic and down to earth, whereas Elmer Keith was go big or go home. If you're going to shoot that animal, you need way more kinetic energy than 1,000 foot-pounds of energy. And it really comes down to the shooter. You know, you get these guys out there shooting elk at 800, 1,000 yards with a 6.5 Creedmoor. I don't quite agree with that. An elk at 200-300 yards, sure. Yeah, I believe the energy's there and you're not really goofing off. In fact, I've seen elk killed with a 6mm at 200 yards. So, shot placement trumps caliber, velocity, bullet type more often than not. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation put out an article a few years ago entitled, "Just because you can shoot that long doesn't mean that you should." And I'll put a link to that article in the description. It's a great read if you're thinking about getting into long-range hunting, or even if you're one of those guys that I'm a long-range hunter, I'm a sniper wannabe, or even a former sniper. This is things that you need to read and really comprehend. If you are an ethical sportsman, you need to rethink what you think about long-range hunting. We are responsible for what we do and do not do. And if we want to have, elk herds for generations to come and really teach our kids what true hunting ethics are, then you need to do it yourself. Don't push out further than you should. Close the gap, get comfortable, and get practiced. Thank you for tuning in and listening to what I have to say. If you'd like to bitch and moan about how stupid I am for my opinion on this, leave it in the comments below.